Hey folks, and welcome to the Pipnotic Symposium. Today we are going to cover the Pools Algo Trader and walk through the configuration so that you guys understand what all the settings do and how you can use them to manipulate the robot. Okay, so if we have a click on this, we have the product key. This changes every month, so the first of every month you will need to log on to the Pipnotic website and get this product key. We have the conditions, the next section, max slippage, max spread is pretty self-explanatory. And here in the time frame we have active, and we also have the time frames that we know from MT4. If you set this to 4, the software will then go down to here and it'll look at all of the pairs specified here and identify trades on them on the 4-hour chart. I don't like to do that because I think it goes a little bit too quick, so what I normally do is I leave it on current, and then I know that I will be focusing on the current chart, symbol, and time frame. This just slows things down a little bit, and this I like. Multiple instances, when this is set to false, only one instance will be running at a time, and this is useful if you have multiple instances running, for example, and one is set to do one thing and the other is set to do another. This can cause some conflict, and so I just have removed this by specifying this parameter. In the risk parameters, here we have maximum risk. This is 1/4 of 1%. This is a decimal, okay, so 1 is 100%, 0.1 is 10%, 0.01 is 1%, and 0.025 is 1/4 of 1%. The lot size, if this is set to 0 like so, then the robot will look at the lot size and always use this value here. The max lot size, this is a parameter that I introduced, and this is just to ensure that crazy lot sizes are not being calculated by the robot. So if you have a tiny stop and the position size is enormous relative to the account, you can set this to, for example, 0.05, and the robot will never open trade bigger than 5 microlots. Okay, but if it's set to 0, then it'll do whatever it wants to do. Okay, it'll always use the calculated lot sizes. Max positions per pair. So if we have the robot running on the Euro US dollar, it will only find one trade on that chart. If we set this to 2, then it'll find 2 trades. Max positions per currency. It'll look at all of the trades that the robot has opened, and if it exceeds this value, then it'll stop looking for trades that contain the currency that exceeds this number here. Distance between positions, if you put 2 here, and this is set to 10, the first entry will be set at, let's say, 1, and the second entry will be set at 1 plus 10 pips. Delete pending orders, you set this to true, it'll read all of the pending orders and it'll delete them. I normally do this when I'm clearing out trades, kind of emptying the magazine before I start afresh. Instruments, these are the pairs that are traded when this parameter here is set to a static time frame. Otherwise it looks at the active symbol in time frame. Filters, positive swap only. Set this to true and you'll be sure that you're trading in line with the swaps, and this is going to be the minimum swaps. You're willing to pay -5 units of base currency per standard lot. If this is set to true, if you don't want to pay anything, just set this to 0. Stop losses, yes, we want to enable stop losses. Enable trailing stops, yes. Stop multiplier 4, so when it calculates an area like this, the stop multiplier will take this size and it'll multiply it by 4, bringing the stop to 1, 2, 3, 4. So just to give the position a little bit of air to move. Stop in pips, if you specify this to 5, then it'll move the stop loss to 5 pips. Same applies for targets. If this is set to true, then it's going to look for the entry here and it's going to calculate the target 5 times the size of this area of supply, so down here somewhere, unless target in pips is set to a static value. Supply and demand, risk to reward ratio. So when an area like this is qualified, the departure away from the area of supply here has to be 3 times the size of this, and it has to happen within 3 periods. So by the time by the time this candle here is closed, price has to have moved 3 times the size of this area of supply away. Allow multiple tests. If this is set to true, once an area is tested, like this one, if this one is tested, the trade will still be opened on this non-fresh area of demand. Number of pairs until expiration. Every time a position is opened, it'll calculate the number of positions times 20, and it'll set the expiration time to this value. So if you're looking at the 1 hour chart, it'll set the position to expire after 20 hours. Rectangle width, line width, this just sets the rectangle width, which is like this. If you set this to 2, then this line will be a little bit thicker. Enable deep zones. This is set to true. If this is set to false, the entry will go here. If it's set to true, the entry will go here. So it'll go to the very beginning of the sell zone. Okay. Trend lines, if this is set to true, the robot will draw trend lines that you can see here. Trend line width set to 1. The thickness of the line. Enable auto trend lines, then it's going to be running and calculating these values and drawing trend lines automatically. Swing point significance, let me put this to about 5. If this is set to 5 or even 3, then the robot will have, it'll be looking for significant highs and lows that have been respected for 3 periods before and after. So this one here and this one here. But also this one here, you can see that the high of this was respected 1, 2, 3 periods to the right, 3 periods to the left. So this would also be a valid swing point. And then down here we have the colors, and that's pretty much it. We go to the last parameter here. This is the magic number. If you are using multiple instances of the robot, you want to ensure that each instance has its own unique magic number. If this is not the case, you'll have the robot doing all sorts of things on the same positions. But if you change this value, then each instance will have its own batch of trades that represent the parameters and the configuration that you specify here. Good, well, I hope this helps answer your question. If you have any questions, please let me know.